Excuse me. Books have been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. I grew up in public housing on the south side of Chicago in a neighborhood called Inglewood. My parents had moved north as part of the Great Migration. They settled in the area in this building called 220 East 63rd Street. The building was a part of public housing. It was part of a public housing project where low-income families lived. It was supposed to be temporary until they found us a better place, when my dad found a better job. Unfortunately, my mother and my father didn't get to study past the 6th grade. As black children in the South, their education was less important than picking cotton. Over time in this building, the requirements for tenants change, and the tenants change. And that means when you have that many people living on top of each other, soon people turn to drugs and gangs to escape and for love. And it was during those times that I found my love of books and coffee. Books were my escape. I read everything that I could get my hands on. And 2 times a month, the Chicago Public Library sent the bookmobile out. And I waited for that bookmobile with anticipation and with dread. The dread was because I had to return the books. These books had characters who were like friends to me, but the anticipation was maybe this time I could make a connection with more characters. Books kept me out of trouble, mostly. Even though the characters didn't look like me or live like me, I found the slightest possibility that there could be a change for me. And I thought that even though I didn't have blue eyes or long hair, maybe I could also have a happy ending. There's a study called Windows, Mirrors, and Sliding Glass Doors. And in this study, Rudine Sims Bishop says, when lighting conditions are just right, a window can become a mirror. Literature transforms the human experience and reflects it back to us. And in this reflection, we understand that our lives and our experiences are part of the whole human experience. So children seek their mirrors in books, and that's where we have a problem. When children cannot find themselves in books, excuse me, or the images they find are negative, laughable, or distorted, they learn a powerful lesson that they are not valued by the society that they live in. They learn that they have no value and no place in our society. Let me give you an example. Growing up, for my child, I was the only person that took care of her hair. She had curly hair, she's biracial, and it was beautiful. But all of her friends had straight hair, all of her TV shows, her magazines, and the books that she was assigned to read in school. And on occasion, we did straighten her hair. And then I started thinking about affirmations and empathy. And I decided that I didn't want her to straighten her hair anymore. And so I started looking for books that would help me take better care of her natural hair. And I started looking for books she could read where kids had natural hair and brown skin. And then I broke out the clippers and I shaved off all my own hair. How could I tell her her curls were beautiful and she was beautiful if I was straightening my own hair? During this time, I came across a TED Talk, and it's called The Dangers of a Single Story. In it, Chimamanda Adichie says that growing up, and she's a Nigerian author, growing up she only read books with foreigners in them. And that by their very nature, she thought books had to have foreigners in them, and that she would never find a book that had anything she could identify with. And she's not saying don't stop reading those books, right? She's not saying don't read the classics. She's not saying throw away books that you loved when you were little. She's saying you could still love those books. I still love The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. I still love Ray Bradbury's Martian Chronicles, and I still love Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. But what I came to realize by my own reading, I was relaying a single story. That the books I read to kids in elementary schools reinforced a single story, and that the books I put in the middle school library told a single story. The very idea that we read books that we read as children to our children, and if we only read and share those books, means that we are ensuring that a single story will be told for generations. That comes to the next part. When kids only see themselves in books, they have a hard time understanding the global connected culture that we live in. They have a hard time understanding that there are other stories, and that these stories are connected to them. Over the years, there's also been a study by the Cooperative Children's Book Council. They study how many books are being published for children of color, LGBTQ, people with disabilities, and other identities like that. And what they found that at least for the last 2 studies, there has been an increase in inclusive books. So yay. But they also found that there's been an increase in misrepresentation. So boo. I began to wonder what would happen if I tried to find these marginalized stories to read to everyone. What if I made these stories easily accessible to people? I used to go to a place called Nerd Camp. For 7 years, I, a grown woman, went to Nerd Camp for 7 summers. And over the course of this time, the 7 years, I met authors, illustrators, teachers, librarians, students, and all these people had one goal in mind. They wanted to find inclusive literature and give it to kids. These were people that told me, they encouraged me, you should open a bookstore. You should specialize in uplifting marginalized voices. And I was like, I talked to my family. I asked a couple of people, and I started to think maybe this is something I could do. I wear these 2 rings. One says, pray hard, and the other says, fear not. And so in 2018, I started a fund to raise money to open a bookstore. We raised $11,000, and I quit my job, and we got started. Excuse me. Side note on the name of Brain Lair. Twitter was out. I was wanting to be on Twitter, so I was trying to find a Twitter handle, that name that they call you, that @ name. And I had just finished a book, because for me, everything is about books. I just finished a book, and the main character loved anagrams. I'm like, oh, that's cool, because I'm cool, I should do that. And so I put in the librarian, because that's what people used to call me, and it came out the Brain Lair. So that's how the name was born. There was a brief moment when I thought I should call it the Kathy, but nobody went for that. I made the conscious decision to focus on children's books because I felt that even though I don't like kids, their books are okay. Children are our future, and children's books, to me, are the most widespread. We read them at home, we read them at school, everywhere you go, you read them in a medical office, there's always children's books. So that's why I decided to focus on that. And I wanted to reach the kids I thought would make a change. I had to make sure that we equip kids with the power to see that all of our stories are connected, that we equip kids and we show them that if they accept each other and make connections, that this world could be a better place and that we could see a paradigm shift. So that's why I chose children's books. And here are 2 testimonies I want to read to you. The bookstore's collection has been very important for my son. He's fighting an uphill battle against dyslexia. The Brain Lair's variety of books offer options that are appealing and appropriate for his reading level. In addition, my son is African American, adopted into a white family. Every young person benefits from seeing a role model and having heroes that look like them, but I feel it's especially important for my son. And this is from a kid. This bookstore has changed my life. My mom says that's dramatic, but it's true. Now I can see the world through the eyes of so many different perspectives. And I share that with you to show you an example of what could happen if we were all reading diverse and inclusive literature. It could change the person who loves reading and wants to be better, wants to have a better life. It could change the life of somebody who needs self-affirmation and needs to know that they're beautiful. And they could change this community, one book at a time. Thank you.